Hi, fellow toolboxers. Welcome to episode 265. This is one of our interviews with Gregg of the Kurzman Law Firm, talking about updates in federal appeals courts and BIA decisions. You'll learn a lot from these. It's great for practice, all sorts of different practice areas. Even if you don't handle these cases, it's always a lot of fun. I want to remind everybody the conference is coming up in February about O1 visas. If you want to learn how to do them and expand your practice in this wild economy going on, you want to bring aboard an additional tool in your toolbox to get your business bigger and more powerful and more successful. Email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com or RSVP on the Toolbox homepage. You can check it out then the postgraduate study page. If you're interested in learning about marriage green cards and how to do those, adjustment of status, consular processing, inadmissibility, all that kind of stuff, I have a course for you as well. So check that out. Finally, the magazine. It's the best resource out there for immigration lawyers. It's quick and easy to access. Go to immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com and the magazine option. And check out their latest issue. I want to thank our sponsors, DocWise, who's been such a great supporter of the Toolbox, both the podcast and the magazine. You get additional 10% off their annual plan by going to docwise.com/immigration-lawyers-podcast using the code Immigration Lawyers Podcast. All the information here is for education purposes only, not intended for individual legal advice, but you'll have a good time. Check it out. Hey, Kevin, good to have you on the show again. Thanks for coming on. Every time you come on, you fill me in on so much stuff that I have no idea about, because other than the headlines or even these cases come out, it's always like something I don't handle. And with the amount of reading I have to do, I can't get into it. But I like, seeing the big stuff that's really important. That affects do you think it's most immigration? No, most immigration is probably just basic, green card, the million green card cases that come out. But I mean, that's essentially, it affects tens of thousands of immigrants. It's kind of every decision that comes out. So it's a large chunk of the people. And the cases touch on so many different kind of areas. So at the end of the day, it touches on every immigrant. So thank you for coming on. How you been and what we're going to talk about today.
It's always my pleasure. I appreciate it. I love coming on to talk about this with you. Some of them, even the ones that get wonky about jurisdiction, they always like go through the procedural history and they tell these stories, if nothing else, of even people who are lying. Mm-hmm. They tell these stories about how people come to America under exceptional circumstances, even if they're coming just to work, as if that was a bad thing. It used to be how my great grandparents came here. They came to work. I'm not condoning making up stories, but every one of these cases I find very interesting, even when it's a 4-page we don't have jurisdiction, I don't know why we published it type case. Actually, in that vein, I don't know if you saw, the Supreme Court took up certiorari this week on a Fifth Circuit thing that I talk about on the podcast all the time, because the Fifth Circuit is always issuing these decisions, and that is essentially, there's a line of cases in the Fifth, and really only the Fifth, that say, and to paraphrase, if the Board of Immigration Appeals messes up, for example, if they engage in improper fact-finding, which the board isn't allowed to do, they're not allowed to discover facts for the first instance, for example. In the Fifth Circuit, you couldn't challenge that at the Fifth Circuit. You would have to file a motion to reconsider with the Board of Immigration Appeals saying, board, you messed up. And with all the motion to reconsider standards, give the board an opportunity to write a better denial, essentially. And then, a motion to reconsider, it's thousands of dollars. It's a real filing. Anyway, the Fifth Circuit makes you do all of that, and it's getting narrower and narrower what must be reconsidered. Oil keeps making these arguments, and the Fifth Circuit is happy to adopt them. If you didn't make this one sub-argument before the board through reconsideration, even if it's a sub-argument, you can't bring it to the Fifth Circuit. It's really becoming quite the thing. I talk about it on the podcast, I feel like once a month, and the Supreme Court just took up certiorari on that issue. I'll tell you right now, the Fifth Circuit's an outlier. I read all the cases every week, but we'll see what happens with that. So that's interesting. Yeah, this week. That's not what I'm here to talk about, but.
So what's the first case in line?
First case. I apologize. I just flew in from San Francisco, had a successful naturalization interview.
Congrats.
With the guy who got a green card through the EB-5 program. They do exist. For the regional center, they do exist.
You got to the finish line. So the thing about going to San Francisco field office, for those who practice in California, is when you fly into SFO, you still got to take the BART and go all the way over there. Did you get a cab or a BART to get to the field office?
I did get a cab.
Gotta get a cab.
It was an EB-5 naturalization. If you recall the procedural history.
So I mean, I'm kind of scared. Like, I don't even go to interviews in San Francisco anymore because I'm kind of afraid to go to Tenderloin or anywhere in that area. It's such a last time I went was to the AILA conference, and there were people doing sort of needles like right in the middle of the street, defecating in the middle of the street, right in front of the Macy's, which is like the major part there. I'm like, San
That's
Francisco
true.
is really falling apart. And this was like AILA conference, and it was just like 4 or 5 years ago. It's probably gotten much worse now. So I'm kind of even afraid to go to San Francisco.
Well, I just changed my microphone, by the way. Do I sound fine?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
sound like
Yeah.
much more handsome.
I gotta push back on that though. Maybe it's because I took the cab. San Francisco, it looked fine. I went out to a nice dinner with my uncle. It was San Francisco is beautiful, and I know about the Tenderloin and some of the stuff near the Macy's, but there's I don't know. It's all right.
And
It's
that's
all
the part. That's the main part. You go in the shopping, you walk around, and it's like it's scary. I mean, people are losing their mind. It's like downtown LA and like Skid Row, almost like for the main part of San Francisco. But I've been there a couple years, but I've heard it just got worse. But it's I hear you. I mean, God bless them. Hopefully, everything gets better over there. I don't see that happening. But I just hope LA doesn't get like that. I was in San. I got to say, I was in San Diego over the weekend. We made a right turn. All of a sudden, next to these beautiful high rises, it looked like Skid Row. I was really surprised to see San Diego like that. So it's the
Yeah,
California
there's homeless issues in California right now, no doubt, no doubt. But it's been a long day, and I'm happy because you got to celebrate the wins. That's what
Yeah,
we get a
sorry to
lot
go
of
down that
we get a
note,
lot of hard cases at the
but
firm, and any win's a win, and I'm happy about it. So, and
stuff
that's what I talk about on your podcast is the wins only at
for
this
sure.
point now.
I want to take a quick moment to talk about our sponsor, Immigration Evaluation Directory. Did you know research reports psychological evaluations can increase an asylum applicant's chance of approval by 78%? Psychological evaluations are hugely beneficial in hardship cancellation, asylum, and other types of cases. Connecting with qualified clinicians has never been easier thanks to the Immigration Evaluation Directory. Free to use, you can filter the directory by location, language, case type, and more, then review profiles and reach out to the best person out there. The Immigration Evaluation Directory is your one-stop resource to find the best therapist to help. Explore more at immigrationevaluationdirectory.com. That's immigrationevaluationdirectory.com for finding the best therapist that you could use for your waiver or asylum case, for sure.
Gonzalez-Castillo v. Garland out of the 9th on August 31st. I don't think I talked about this last we spoke. I usually try to go month to month. But this is the one about red notices. And it's just, I mean, I love these cases about red notice because there's matter of Werb, which is a board decision that essentially says, and to paraphrase, the board is saying in Werb, a red notice, if ICE submits a red notice, the non-citizen has to prove that they didn't do it, or they're going to be convicted, or that's going to be deemed a serious non-political crime that they committed, which is going to bar them from asylum.
Yeah.
That's essentially Werb. And how do you prove a negative? How do you prove that you didn't do something?
Ridiculous.
But the Ninth Circuit is now in this decision, Gonzalez-Castillo, and it aligns with an Eighth Circuit decision talked on from like a year or two ago. Essentially, matter of Werb and the regulations around serious non-political crime to the Ninth Circuit cannot trump the statute. The statute only bars non-citizens from asylum if there is serious reasons to believe that the individual has committed a serious non-political crime. That's a whole mouthful of nonsense. But the Ninth Circuit is saying, as has the board actually, that equates to probable cause. So an IJ can't deny asylum for serious non-political crime unless there's probable cause to believe that the non-citizen committed it. And the Ninth Circuit is saying, as the Eighth Circuit has said, as DOJ itself says, and an IJ is part of DOJ, that red notices don't equate to probable cause. They just don't. It's an international system, Interpol. They're not really vetting what these countries are requesting. It's just a request from a country to the U.S. government saying, hey, look out for this dude. But DOJ's official policy is it's not probable cause. And so what this decision says, Gonzalez-Castillo, is that a red notice alone cannot equate to serious reasons for believing a serious non-political crime has been committed. So if ICE doesn't submit anything other than a red notice, and if the non-citizen is credible, I suppose, matter of Werb be damned, burdens be damned, this individual is not barred from asylum. That's what this decision, Gonzalez-Castillo v. Garland, says. And I mean, it's a big case. I mean, in the underlying decision, the BIA held that this case was on all fours with matter of verb, and now the Ninth Circuit has disagreed. To me, that's the Ninth Circuit saying we don't defer to matter of verb. Now, of course, they didn't come out and say that, but it's a big decision because ICE relies on red notices all the time, at least in our experience in Miami with some of the decisions we sometimes
Yeah.
get.
Like
And
Venezuelan cases where they get these politically motivated stuff that are there. I've heard it.
yeah, during it seems like sometimes these countries, if they want their national back, I mean, we have something in this country, it's extradition proceedings. You want them back, you get them, and those are hard. It's in federal court. There's evidentiary things, and so sometimes the red notice is kind of serving as an end run to this framework that's already in place, which is extradition proceedings. And this decision is kind of saying, no, that's not
It's
that
such an
doesn't.
important thing because people might not deal with this red notice issue, but it'll pop up in everyone's practice one way or another in their career. And it's such a ridiculous thing, and people get hit really hard. And you got to fight back because despite the decision, ICE is still going to probably just say hold on to him and try not to get bond and all that kind of stuff. You
They're
say no,
gonna.
I'm familiar with this red notice is just garbage notice. So it's like we're not bound by this stuff.
They're gonna do that. That's exactly what ICE is going to do, and it looks scary. And you've got all these foreign convictions, and it's who knows how much they're getting translated. But again, you come in with this is just as good for bond. This is you going into immigration court and saying, Judge, this is not probable cause of anything. He's not a danger. It's not a flight risk. He's an asylum seeker. This is all politics.
Yeah,
That's often the case in our experience. So
it's a
big
good news.
decision.
Yeah, really good decision. Thanks for sharing that.
Always looking for stuff to undermine red notices, to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
it's one of my niche stuff. We were a couple years ago. We kept talking about TPS and what that something about TPS, and unfortunately, the Supreme Court went the other way. The red notice situation is one of my pet peeves too, because I had a client deal with it. It was such a ridiculous situation where I'm like, this is just straight up unfair and probably unconstitutional for all I know. But I'm glad we're getting better decisions on it. Thank you.
There are some good practitioners in Miami who get red notices deleted a lot. They know how to work with the Interpol system. We use them. We have a contact at Greenberg Traurig. There's also individuals who are solos who know how to work with Interpol, and for the right case, it gets it deleted, and then that becomes, and that's even more powerful. That's often Interpol saying we don't trust this country. That actually it turns a negative into a positive. It turns what was a red notice into actually this is clear political persecution because this country, even Interpol, doesn't trust them to give away some of my arguments that I make. Fraser, the Attorney General of the U.S. out of the Third Circuit. This one was an interesting one for me. It's about continuances, which are boring usually, but I found it interesting because it's about Third Circuit went all in on the due process constitutional arguments. First of all, Mr. Fraser was detained, and there's this great quote if you're ever challenging a denial of a continuance where they say, quote, there was no necessity for the hasty hearing by the immigration judge, end quote. So, but for the need for a hasty hearing, an IJ should grant a continuance. That seems like a standard to pull out of that quote to me, but that's also me playing around a bit. But what I like the most about Fraser, first, they remanded because an IJ denied this pro se individual. They denied him a continuance. I believe that he had counsel, if I recall, but counsel came on the day before, and then when the continuance was denied, counsel's like, I'm out. I can't do this on one day's notice. I think it was pro bono counsel. Mm-hmm. And so this was a denial of constitutional right to counsel in immigration court. And what I love about this is the Third Circuit is saying there are some regulations, such as the right to counsel in immigration, that are so important that the violation of them doesn't even require a prejudice showing. Now, in this case, to me, it's kind of obvious. You deny someone an attorney, it's likely to affect the outcome of proceedings. In this case, they can get certain evidence, certain corroborating evidence. They can make arguments. But there's a reason. And actually, the Third Circuit is saying a denial of this type of denial of this regulation designed to protect this kind of constitutional right. You don't even have to show prejudice. It's assumed. It is what it is, and that if there is the violation, then a remand is required. And
So that I think that's important stuff. It highlights the importance of what we do. And there are other regulations that are designed to protect constitutional rights. That violation of them might not require a prejudice showing in immigration court. It gets wonky, but it's kind of one of the fun areas of removal defense for me when you're bringing in the Constitution, protecting these rights, but also using the regulations as a bit of a sword to get benefits for your clients, to exclude evidence, to get second chances, to get due process.
I hear you. Thank you. Glad to
You're
see
welcome.
these fights going on. These kind of stuff.
And it's late on our end. It's even later on the East Coast, and so I'll just conclude quickly with two Ninth Circuit cases that were published 2 weeks apart, both titled Singh v. Garland, which and I actually did. I counted the second one. The podcast has been around. My podcast has been around for 2.5 years. I have done 10 petition for reviews where the petitioner's last name is Singh. So popular name in India.
Yeah.
They both involve the Man Party, MANN, which I'm no expert, but I do believe is it's a pro-Sikh political party that at certain aspects of it do advocate for an independent Sikh state in India, but no expert on that for sure. But they're both favorable in the asylum type context. The first Singh, published on August 30th, 2022, I like for this, and it's a motion to reopen for changed country conditions, and the quote is, "The country condition evidence reveals a marked change from the conditions at the time of Singh's original hearing in 1997.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, I always love doing country condition evidence based on what the circuits are saying. This is the Ninth Circuit saying, it seems, that conditions have gotten worse since the late 90s, such that maybe you should be reopening. And I bet you that there are a lot of Sikh individuals ordered removed in the late 90s, early 2000s, that you can then come in with a case like this and say, look, the Ninth Circuit says it's worse. Reopen so we can do an asylum case now.
Let's back up the procedure. I can learn more about this. So they originally filed the asylum case in 1997. They failed. They just stayed. They didn't get removed. And 20 years later, they try to reopen based on new conditions, even though it's past the 1 year filing deadline.
You sound like a nice trial attorney, Dr. Shavi.
Is that what's happening?
That is what's happening. And it actually gets worse. The IJ found Mr. Singh not credible in 1997. So this case also brings into play matter of FSN, where the BIA was saying that even if conditions have gotten worse, if you want to reopen and there's a prior adverse credibility, you got to get over that adverse credibility first. And you have to produce new evidence to show that you were credible way back then. It's a very high burden. But in this case, the Ninth Circuit is kind of assuming FSN is okay, but the evidence that Mr. Singh provided might have actually shown that he was being credible all those years ago. But that's only the first hurdle, and not the hurdle that I find as interesting, although it is interesting. The second hurdle, though, is, have conditions changed at all? And this does seem to be the Ninth Circuit saying conditions are worse for Sikhs now than they were in the late 90s. But yes, procedurally, this individual was ordered removed in 1997, and he has been hanging around for 25 years.
When it comes to these country conditions, it's for immigration lawyers, you really got to be familiar and keep up on the politics and stuff to really do a good asylum case. And just doing immigration in certain countries, you got to know the nuances. Like, I deal with Iranian cases, and sometimes like I'll have like people who don't deal with Iranian cases give timelines on how like a marriage case would be. I'm like, oh no, that's not having an Iranian case. We have admin processing, we have no interviews. And so it's like, if you're doing a asylum case, for example, for Sikh individual, you got to stay on top of what's going on. And I mean, you have to do the research and you get to see court cases, but it's just to develop high level like practice and you're doing a good job, you got to be really on top of facts and geopolitics and all this kind of stuff.
So tell me, sir, why do you fear the Shah? No, I mean that's why, but I think that's what attracts a lot of people to immigration law. I love it. I get my country condition briefings every day from Foreign Policy. There's a daily bulletin, and I read Foreign Affairs magazine every 2 months, and they've got these great deep dives. I mean, Russia. I've been filing motions to reopen for Russians or against the war in Ukraine. Conditions have changed domestically for Russians. Armenians and Azerbaijan. Those two countries went to war a year and a half ago, and how are ethnic Armenians treated in Azerbaijan, for example? I think it's one of the things I like the most. And it's really the intersection of foreign affairs and domestic immigration law.
That's what the people like. Immigration's got everything. It's got corporate aspects, it's got criminal aspects, it's got political science, it's got everything in the world because it's dealing with humans. It's here. It's a great area for law practice.
That's right. And the second Singh, then also Man Party, and this one is a flat out asylum case. This is a newer Mr. Singh, not reopening. And it's the Ninth Circuit. Again, I'm no expert on India. I do know the bit of the history of their current Prime Minister, Modi, and the BJP party and their Hindu nationalism streak, and how that might make conditions worse for a Sikh-based party that seeks further right for Sikh individuals. And so you get these cases, and this actually wasn't the BJP, but the Congress Party members, allegedly, which is the second big party in India with the BJP, attacking this Mr. Singh, who is part of the Man Party. And this is the Ninth Circuit saying, Claire, it's about past persecution. And they're saying being forced to flee your home after being the victim of a verbal confrontation and 2 physical attacks, one of which involves a death threat, that's past persecution. If it's on account, there are no, and the quote is, there's no need for severe injuries. That's not what past persecution requires. And here's this final quote to leave this conversation with. It would be a strange rule indeed if the absence or presence of a broken arm were the dispositive fact in an asylum claim. And I think written out like that, it's obvious, right? You don't have to get physically hurt to the point of near death to get asylum in this country. The point is we protect you before something bad happens. It's just that so often, and people try to make their claim based on things that did happen to them, or they're not going to be believed. So
that sounds like a line, a quote you could put in every affirmative asylum case that doesn't have straight up person missing an eye or some brutality.
That's right. That's right. That's why
language right at the beginning. Yeah.
That's why I quote it herein.
Perfect. Yeah. Well,
that's all I got.
I appreciate you coming on. You're a busy guy traveling America. You got a lot of energy, bro. Like the flights you do, and you go to hearings. Just getting an interview. I had one interview I didn't go to for Nats in San Francisco, and the guy got in 9 o'clock appointment, was in the room, and computer breaks. Has to wait an hour for computer work again. Goes in again, breaks again, waits 2 hours. He was there until like 4 p.m. and the computer just didn't get fixed. The guy's like, we can't do it. So I'm like, oh, thank God I didn't go to that interview. I would have been stuck in San Francisco. I missed my flight back to LA. Would have had to get a hotel. But you never know what you're gonna get when you go on these trips. It's like active, thing that you gotta deal with. You never know what you're gonna get. Well, God bless you in the work that you do. Thank you, Kevin.
I was in Orlando. Hey, you honor me. I was in Orlando 2 weeks ago. For an individual hearing, ICE got a day of continuance. I mean, what am I going to do with that? I fought it like hell.
Yeah.
A day of continuance. I have an expert there. I'm there. We're ready to go. This is real money. And actually nothing against the ICE attorney. I think he was actually just stuck in a bad situation, but I mean, this is real prejudice going on. So it is chaos. I have yet to miss my flight home, knock on wood. So it's always this game. I have been running out of government agencies with like my bag behind me and it's stuck in traffic, but I have yet to I had to have someone pick up a car once that I had to park illegally, but I still made that flight. But you say boundless energy, secret. I don't have kids like you. You're the one with boundless energy. You're the one doing a million things and still pulling it off and also having kids. So
I appreciate it. And I have one last question. How are things in Florida for the Kurzman law firm with the hurricane and everything? Were you all affected, or what's the situation
Yeah.
like?
Thank you for asking. I mean, like, as you know, I'm in San Diego, but of course, always in contact with the firm. South Florida didn't really get hit. My parents are in Broward County, just north of Miami. They didn't really get hit either. It was more of a Northwest Florida thing.
Mhm.
And we certainly have clients in that area. I've reached out to them. All of our clients and past clients seem to be okay, but there was some serious devastation in Fort Myers and a bit north up to Tampa. But we're fine. I mean, it didn't really hit South Florida.
Well, that's good. It was kind of weird. Did it really cross over the land to the other side? I keep trying to get like
Yeah,
big internet. That's a crazy hurricane to
it
cross over the
it
land
can't.
all the time.
It was I believe it was one of the African ones. So it comes from Africa and it hit Puerto Rico, right? So then it goes into the Gulf, comes back, hits the West Coast, crosses, and now it's going up the Atlantic to hit the Carolinas. It's
That's nuts.
wild stuff.
Wow, it's like a massive tornado that's 1,000 times bigger, just destruction. I heard people are gonna be out for lights for a month and stuff like that, and water's gonna be like not clean and everything. Man, Florida's every year. This is like this hurricane situation there is tough. Now in LA, like they keep talking about like the big ones coming for earthquake wise, and we're just gonna do with that. But the annual hurricanes coming, it seems like a major headache to deal with.
You get used to it. You get generators. I mean, now you have shutters, but I grew up in South Florida. We moved there in '91, I want to say, and it was '92 where Hurricane Andrew came in, and that changed everything for everyone. It destroyed Miami. It was supposed to hit us, but it changed last minute. It was still hit us bad, but nobody had shutters. I mean, I remember my parents, they had like X's of duct tape on the window, so when the window shattered, it wouldn't shatter in a million pieces, just like 4 pieces. Like, how is this protecting anything? So Florida has gotten its act together with construction, but at the end of the day, if a 5 comes through and does a direct hit, the roofs are coming off.
Yeah.
And the water damage, that's what a lot of this is. I mean, nothing protects, no one does flood insurance. So I mean, it's really a tragic thing. I think they need to reshape how we protect these communities from the flooding, especially.
And then there's mold and stuff. It's like, how do you get
Yeah.
rid of that? So it's just a sad thing. That's got my heart goes out to these people trying to live your life, and you got to deal with the elements and stuff. It's just like, God damn, we have enough economy, this and that. Now we got hurricanes coming at us, but that's the human condition. Thank you for coming on. It was good talking with you again, Kevin.
You too. Talk to you next month when the magazine's published.
For sure. And you got a great article in it. I appreciate it coming in. Hopefully we'll be a regular at the Kurzman firm. We'll do regular spots. We'll keep a spot just for the Kurzman firm and so you can market the firm and the book too at the same time as giving the information out to help people.
Very sly.
Awesome. All right, man. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Bye, John. You too.